The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Today on Leadership Lunch, we're going to be talking about multitasking, specifically why multitasking is actually an illusion, and 3 techniques you can use to improve your multitasking, to improve how quickly you're getting things done. So just a couple of administrative things. We have a bunch of people on the call, so we're going to put you on mute. If you can hear my voice and see the screen right now, if you go ahead and raise your hand, there's a way through the control panel to raise your hand. So if you could figure that out, just want to make sure all the technology is working smoothly. Excellent. Looks like people can hear me, so that's good. You can put your hands back down. The other thing is that in order to get in touch with me, you can always put questions through on your chat box. So if you go ahead and chat through, then I will get your questions. I can't guarantee that I'll answer everything on the live call, but if you ask me a question, I will make sure to answer it with you either online or offline afterwards. So welcome to the call. My name is Andy Winnig. We have a couple more people logging on. So as they do, I'd like to launch the first poll, and the question is how often you're getting interrupted during your day. So if you just let me know how often you get interrupted during your day. That's excellent. Thank you very much. So there's a good reason for that. And the reason is that in our schools today, there's a special word we use when we talk about teamwork. We call teamwork cheating. It's cheating. If they catch you working together on tasks or problem sets or exams, you get in trouble and they throw you out. So it's no wonder that when people get out into the world and are faced with a lot of things to do or faced with a lot of tasks, that the feeling is you have to do all the work yourself. As people look to multitask, how can I do multiple things at once so I can become much more efficient? And what we're going to be talking about today is a better way. It's called collective engineering, and it's literally the process of developing great teams. It's collective, meaning of the group, and engineering, meaning the process of putting knowledge to practical use. And so what we're going to be looking at today for collective engineering is there are actually only 3 reasons that work doesn't get done. And what we're going to be doing is looking at multitasking in that context, that when things aren't getting done, sometimes people blame multitasking, and sometimes it's the cause and sometimes it isn't, but we're going to be looking at 3 techniques you can use to make sure that you are getting things done more efficiently. So once again, collective engineering is the process of developing great teams, and we're using it in the context today of multitasking to look at how we can motivate people, how we can get things done much more efficiently. So I'm going to launch my second poll now. I'd like to find out your most productive time of day. Excellent, thank you. So it's good to know your most productive time of day, because that's when you can actually work on this idea of multitasking. It's good to know kind of when you're at your best and when you can focus and do your best work. Because a lot of our days, you get interrupted a lot during the day because there's a lot of interaction going on. But the time that you're at your best is really a good time to focus on some of the techniques we'll be looking at today. So what we're talking about today is collective engineering, and there are 2 myths that collective engineering really addresses. The first we've already talked about a little bit, that teamwork is cheating. And again, this is put in place from our schools. It causes people to be afraid of asking other people for help. We don't really teach the skills of interacting with other people and expecting that people can help us out, because we've been taught that if you ask someone for help, then you're going to be cheating and you're going to be kicked out. So the first myth is that teamwork is cheating. The second myth is delegate and it's done. And what we really talk about with collective engineering is that delegating is a process. And whether you're delegating to yourself or whether you're delegating to someone else, it all works together this way, that there's a process to doing it. And as we said, sometimes work doesn't get done. And I work with a lot of people who are very frustrated in their own work that they're not getting their work done. And again, the techniques we'll be talking about today are some ways that I help them and myself work through some of these to get motivated to get back into the work. And you have to realize that the first step in delegating is that the work doesn't get done, right? Anytime you're delegating to someone new, anytime you start any of these things, work doesn't get done for a variety of reasons. And the trick with delegating, the idea behind delegating, is to figure out what that reason is and then apply a strategy to moving forward. And again, today we're focusing really on multitasking. And so the knowledge that you have is there's only 3 reasons that work doesn't get done, and we'll address that as we go through this program. And the practical use is that we're going to be discussing again 3 techniques that you can use. So when you think that multitasking is an issue, you actually have something you can put your, you have something you can do that says, oh yes, this looks like multitasking, but it's actually this other thing, and I know how to work with this other thing. I know how to keep things moving. So that is our plan for today. Again, we're looking at 3 practical techniques that when something, multitasking is really an illusion. So when it looks like multitasking is your problem, when it looks like someone needs to be doing things simultaneously, we're going to have a couple of ways of dealing with that. So the agenda for today, we've already talked a little bit about collective engineering. I'm now going to go quickly through my story, how I started out multitasking, how I learned some of the things that I learned, how I got to be where I am today. Then we're going to work on the 3 actual techniques, 3 multitasking techniques. And then I'm talking a lot about multitasking being an illusion, that you can't really do 2 things at once. But there are a couple of ways that you can do 2 things at once, and so we'll talk about those at the very end. At the very end, I have a couple of stories about multitasking that actually is multitasking and can be a really great way of increasing your success and increasing the kind of work that you do. So let's get started. So my story, I built my first computer for myself when I was 13 years old. Yes, I am that much of a geek. And I have that little background in working as a team. All the programming that I did through high school and college was on my own. I did my own projects. I worked by myself. There was never any reason to enlist anyone else. And in fact, in class, of course, I was not allowed to enlist other people. And so I got out into the real world and was immediately faced with the frustration of being on a team. And things weren't getting done. Some things were falling off my plate. Some things were falling off other people's plates. It was very difficult to kind of coordinate everything. And I found myself spinning my wheels. I found the people who worked for me spinning their wheels. And a lot of it looked like multitasking. I remember myself thinking, I just wish I was better at multitasking. I wish I could get people better at multitasking. And so from that, I really became intrigued by productivity. I became intrigued by teamwork and how to get things done and how you get things done as a team. And that has led me through the 15 years to the point that I am now, where I own 2 businesses. I'm an active part of 5 networking groups. I run a volunteer organization of about 150 people. I have a wife, a new baby, and a newer baby on the way. And when people hear all that, they look at me in amazement and say, how many hours are in your day? And that's what I'm sharing today. I mean, yes, through these techniques of multitasking and through the techniques that I teach more generally of delegating, you can have a lot of things going on, and you can be sure about how things are going, even though you're not doing all the work. And so that's really what we're talking about today. We're going to be sharing some of these habits, these habits that I've learned and developed over time by trying them out myself, by learning them from other people. We're going to be talking about them today so that you can start using them in the work that you do to make yourself more productive. And so that's really where this comes from, and that's where we're headed. So let's talk about the first strategy. The first strategy I call 3 in 7, and the time I first noticed this was actually in my first job out of school. I was working with this project manager who got very involved in being super efficient during her day. She got the efficiency bug. She was looking for all these little bits of time that she could reclaim so that she could be more, she could get more work done. And one of the things she came up with was she started doing her correspondence in her commute to work. She decided that at red lights she had little bits of time where she could actually write out, thank you cards or write out note cards, or she was kind of trying to use her commute to be efficient. And it's really, I watched this with kind of amazement because, first of all, it's so ridiculously dangerous to be doing this in the car, right? And even if you're only writing things when you're at a stoplight, it's very difficult to find it's very difficult to find the right thing or the right time to do that. So I really felt like she was confusing being busy with being efficient, right? She thought she was using all these little efficient times, but in fact she was really just being busy. And the interesting thing for me is that coming from a computer background as I do, when computers started out, they could only do one thing at a time. And now a lot of folks claim, on the computer you can be running Word and you can be running PowerPoint, you can be running all these things simultaneously. But the dirty little secret behind the computer is that the processor can actually only do one thing at a time. It can only be executing one thing at a time. And the reason it looks like it's multitasking is that it's being very efficient about getting things done. It gets something done over here, it gets something done over here, it gets something done over here. And from the user's point of view, it looks like everything is happening at the same time, but underneath the hood, in fact, things are not. Things are happening one at a time, just very efficiently and very quickly. And so what was missing with my friend's commute time was that she wasn't really getting things done. What she ended up with was a mess in her car, right? There were all these things that were half done and half going. She didn't really have any way of tracking what was going on. And so when you look at multitasking, when I talk about the illusion of multitasking, sometimes people think that they're being very efficient when actually they're being busy. That's kind of the first illusion of like if I can get all these, if I can be doing all these things, then I'm really being more efficient. And I would submit that this friend of mine wasn't actually getting, like our picture on the screen, this friend wasn't actually getting more things done. She just had this illusion that she was being busy. And this creates stress, right? When you're not getting the stuff done that you want to be getting done, it definitely creates stress. And so I don't want to minimize where this comes from, right? I believe there's something very real going on here, and I think that we really do need solutions to how to get more things done more efficiently. So the 3 and 7 actually refers to something I noticed for myself. This was many years ago, back when I was in computers, but I was lying awake one night, unable to sleep. I don't know if any of you have ever had that experience. You know, you're awake at night, unable to sleep. Things are running through your head. And I had discovered this technique that if that was happening, I got out of bed and just wrote down what needed to happen. I just wrote down what was on my mind. And so I got out of bed, and I've been awake for an hour and a half, and it's like, okay, I got to get up. So I wrote down everything that I had in my head, everything I wrote it down. And there were 3 things. And that was all that was keeping me up. There were 3 things running through my head. There were actually, it was 3 phone calls that I needed to make. You know, I needed to follow up with a project person. There was a sales call I needed to make. There were just these 3 phone calls that I needed to make. And so I got out of bed and I wrote down these 3 things. I looked at them, I was like, that's why I can't sleep. So I got back into bed, slept like a baby. I woke up the next morning and chomping at the bit, because these were the 3 things that were stressing me out. And so at 9 o'clock, when it was time to start my day, I started making my calls. And so I went through my call list, all 3 calls, and when I was done, I looked down at my watch, and it was 9:07. So I had done all 3 things that I needed to do in 7 minutes. And of course, I left a couple of messages. I didn't get in touch with everyone on the phone. But the thing was that I had made progress on these 3 things that I needed to make progress on. And now it was off my plate, right? Like over the course of the day, the people called me back, and we had the conversations that we had. But it was important to get that call in the morning so that it could happen during the day. And this is really the theme that we'll be talking about today, that multitasking is about getting things done. And 3 and 7, what I like to think of it as 3 things you can do in 7 minutes. And it's really a jump start to your day, right? If you can hit your desk and get 3 things off your plate, you need to get off your plate. And you know what? If it takes 15 minutes or if it takes 17 minutes, that's fine too. But what we're talking about is multitasking, right? And we're talking about not kind of putting things off, right? You have these things you need to do, and so just sit down and do them, right? Maybe it's 3 emails you need to write. Maybe you need to reply to an email and make a phone call. Whatever the 3 things are, I really like starting my day with that sort of efficiency that I can, have 3 things I can just knock off my plate immediately. And so once again, the 3 and 7 is really just a way of looking at how can I get things done, right? And from the outside world, it looks like I'm multitasking very efficiently because I'm moving all these things forward, right? Maybe if I had 4, whatever calls I had to make, I'm moving the things forward. I'm taking the actions that I need to take to make things happen. And of course, I can only make the phone calls one at a time. But if you're leaving messages for people, you can make a lot of phone calls and kind of get the ball rolling. So that's really the way you look at it. There's a question coming in. Good. So how does this apply to being in your car? Well, so thank you for the question. There is so for my friend who was in her car, what I would have suggested was that she apply this. If she wanted to do it at work, that would be fine, right? You commute to work, and you come to work, and you get to work, and then you spend 7 minutes doing 3 cards, right? If you need to, you can write a card and address it, put the stamp on the envelope, and do that for 3 of them, and throw them in the outbox so they go out with the Daily Mail in about 7 minutes. And I think, and if you do that every day, then of course it's 15 cards over the course of the week, which is, how many cards do you really need to send? And so I think this actually would have been more efficient for her. Rather than trying to shoehorn it into other time, she could have just done it as the first thing that she did. And so that's really what I think about for the 3 and 7. The car is actually one of the times when you can legitimately multitask very safely. And I'm going to talk about that again. That's the thing I'm talking about at the end. But so once again, I will have something at the end. I'll talk more about the cars, because there is a way to multitask in a car that's safe and can really improve your success. Like it's a great moving force. I can't wait to share that with you. Another thing I'll say about the car, again, this is a good question. The good thing about the car, I actually keep a notepad in my car. So as I'm running around during the day, if I come up with, if I get to an appointment early, or whatever's going on, if I have a little bit of extra time, I have something I can work on, right? I can plan my next presentation. I can plan for my next phone call. I can write up, I can write up a new design for my business card, whatever it is that I'm working on at the time. I can make use of that time. I'm sitting there in the parking space waiting for the next thing to happen. I can make use of that time. And again, it's not trying to shoehorn it into my drive time. If I show up late for an appointment, then I run in late to the appointment. But if I'm early, then you can find some extra time that way during your day. And I find it much more relaxing to be early for an appointment, right? You get there early, and you can, get a little bit of work done, get your mind in the right place, and then go in for the day. So it can really help smooth that kind of stuff out. So once again, 3 and 7 is 3 things you can do in 7 minutes, and I like it as a discipline in your best time of the day, right? When is your focus time? Just take some focus time and get 3 things done. It really puts your day on that path of getting things done, and you'll start to notice people say, wow, you're really great at multitasking. I want to learn how you do that. And you can share with them that it's just a question of focusing on getting things done. So the second technique we're going to talk about is the 2-minute rule. And the 2-minute rule comes from the other illusion of multitasking, that a lot of times people think they're multitasking when actually they're procrastinating. And people on this call, you pretty much self-select. I doubt many of you procrastinate, but I am going to put up a question now, and what I'm going to ask you is, how many times a day do you check your email? So go ahead and let me know how many times a day you check your emails. Excellent, thank you. Yep, it tends to be a lot, and I'm the same way. Like I would like to say that I could just check my email once or twice a day, but that's not really doesn't seem possible. But this is a form of procrastination, right? When you're when you've got things to do and you're working away. I mean, I find myself all the time getting sucked back into my email, and so the 2-minute rule comes out of work I've done through David Allen, is getting things done fast. I really like his work, but his rule is that anything you can do in 2 minutes, you just do on the spot. There's no point in putting it off. And the example I had of this was actually last week. I was headed out of town for the weekend. I had a very busy day on Monday, and kind of late in the day Friday, I got a request from someone I'm doing a presentation for in a couple of weeks, and they wanted some information so they could start promoting the event starting on Tuesday. And so I was sitting there at my desk saying, it's the end of the day Friday. I don't feel like doing this, but I'm busy Monday. When am I going to get this to them? So it could be that, maybe, I won't be around this weekend, so what can I do? And what I did was I just sat down and did it. It actually didn't take me much more than 2 minutes to pull the information together and send it off. And then it was done. It was off my plate. It was gone. And it's really, it was really a powerful thing. It's really powerful when you get to that point that the stuff is off your plate. I do this too with my clients. I do pretty detailed. For those of you who work with me, you know that I do pretty detailed session notes when I work with people. And occasionally I fall behind in my session notes, and so I have this whole stack of session notes piled up. And so I just have to create the time to plow through them and get them off my plate, right? What we're really talking about is the discipline of spending the time. And I want to tie this back into email a little bit. The 2-minute rule in email is actually a way of reminding yourself that email is not a quick thing, right? You think, I'll just check my email quickly. And what you really want to be able to do is carve out 5 or 10 minutes at a time to go through your email, right, and respond to anything that will take less than 2 minutes to respond to. I actually keep my inbox. People are amazed by this. My goal is always to have zero messages in my inbox, and I can usually keep it around 5 messages. And how do you do that? And this is the way, the 2-minute rule, right? I don't put things off. If something comes in and I need to reply to it, I reply to it. If something comes in and I'll never look at it again, I delete it. Really, stuff does not spend much time in my inbox. And once again, it looks like I'm multitasking very well. From people who are watching me, people who are interacting with me, the stuff comes through pretty quickly. I respond pretty quickly, and it's not that I'm spending all day. I spend a lot of time outside of the office, so it's not like I'm spending all my time on email. But when I'm in my email, I'm really being very efficiently in my email. And so, depending on how you work with email, I heard someone talk recently, talking about Twitter and how you need to spend about 20 minutes a day working with Twitter. And I said to him, what do you mean 20 minutes a day? Like, you can tweet in seconds. Like, why would you need 20 minutes? He said, well, Twitter is really a conversational tool. He said, right, as you're tweeting back and forth, conversations are going on, so the 20 minutes is really to handle those conversations. And I like that in the context of this 2-minute rule for email. That the problem people have with email is they're not noticing that it just takes time. And so the combination of setting aside time and then using the 2-minute rule can really help you get through your inbox, can really help you keep your inbox under control. And the best way to start narrowing down your inbox, I'm telling you, there's no feeling like having an empty inbox. It's really glorious. When you get to it, it's hard to come away from it once more. But the way to do it is just step by step, right? If you set aside that time for emails, if you deal with 1 or 2 additional 2-minute emails each time you go through your inbox will dwindle down pretty quickly. And again, it's always the case. No, sometimes my inbox gets to 40 or 50 messages, and it's just a discipline to go back through it and go back down it. But again, this from the point of view of multitasking. People say, I've got all this stuff going on. I'm checking my email all the time, and what you're really doing at that point is procrastinating. And again, the way around this is to just do what needs to be done. Right? Email comes in, send it back out. And then you're done with it and keep moving it on. And I have a question. Oh, great question. Yeah. So the question someone just asked is but how do you deal with the interruptions, right? So email comes in, and how do you how do you if you respond to everything as it comes in, then you're never gonna get any of your work done. And well, that's a great question. Thank you. The reason so the solution to that is to make sure that you're setting aside the time to do this, right? If your email is on ping you every time something comes in, then it will interrupt you all day long. But if you can batch it up, right, that'll really help. It'll really help you get through that. So once again, so the 2-minute rule is just a way of looking at things. When something crosses your desk, when something comes into you, whether it's by email or some other way, if you can handle it in 2 minutes, if you have a 2-minute phone call, you can handle it in 2 minutes. You just go ahead and handle it. And once again, as we talked about at the beginning, multitasking is an illusion, right? Like if you want to be good at multitasking, what you're really becoming good at is being efficient about getting things done. Is completing the communication loops with people, is really communicating with people and keeping that process moving. And so when we talk about the 2-minute rule, it's just when you think about it, like if I can handle this in 2 minutes, we're just going to do it and take care of it. So that's good. So far we've talked about the first rule, which is 3 and 7. The second rule is the 2-minute rule. We're going to move on to our third strategy now, which is the priority list. And I don't know about all of you, but certainly when I manage people, as I've managed people through the years, there have been many times when I have been, well, actually, let me ask you all of this. So the next poll question that we'll put up is, have you ever been frustrated by work that was not getting done fast enough? So just let me know that. Excellent. Thank you. Yes, pretty much everyone has. We've all been in that situation where work wasn't getting done fast enough. And I had this going on recently. I have an admin working at my window cleaning business, and I frequently, I'll give her something to do. She needs to send faxes, or I'll have phone calls that need to be made, and I'll find myself getting frustrated that she's not doing them immediately. And with a lot of my clients, a lot of the people I work with, this ends up looking like multitasking, right? People come to me and say, I really wish I could teach them how to do more things at once. They need to get more things done at once. And as we've talked about, multitasking is really an illusion. There is no way of literally doing multiple things at once. What I find is that this is really a priority thing, right? That in my mind, the priority was this thing had to happen immediately, to drop everything and do it kind of thing. And in my admin's mind, it wasn't. And so how do you solve that? Well, you solve that by having the priority conversation with someone. And in fact, this happened to me just the other day, where a phone call came in for someone while they were out of the office, and they came back, and I had promised the person they would call them right back. So I said, no, this call came in, can we give them a call? And it didn't make the call for about 10 minutes. And I said, you know what? I said, I actually promised this person would call them right back, so can you make the call? And it's just really important to be very, very clear about those sorts of priorities. And because that's what's happening. If you think about multitasking, if you think about work getting done and when the work gets done, your concern isn't that people need to do more things at once. Your concern is that something needs to be done that isn't getting done, right? What you're looking at is you have the sense that someone should be working on one thing and they're working on something else. And it's that disconnect that looks like it's a multitasking problem, right? And the same thing's true if it's just yourself, right? If you're the one doing all the work and you're feeling the stress about multitasking, The issue is that you're spending time maybe on email that you should be spending writing up that proposal, right? You're spending time on email that you're spending time on the phone that you should be spending, working towards your next presentation, whatever it is. But when you look at kind of multitasking, when you look at the desire to get multiple things done at once, what's usually going on is that there's a priority issue, that you're working on something, you're spending time and energy on something that isn't actually the most important thing in your mind. And kind of the multitasking idea is your brain's way of letting you know that there's something going on. So the strategy that we're talking about here is to notice this, right? Is to know that as you're multitasking, that if you to know that when kind of multitasking things come up, what we're really talking about is priorities, that it's more a priority issue, and that you can have that priority discussion with people. And there have been plenty of times when I've had the priority discussion with people, and it turns out that their priority was better than mine, right? I had a sense that things should be done in a certain way, but they had more information than I did, and they were actually on the right path. And you know what? There's plenty of stuff that I need done before the end of the week, right? I can give something to someone on Tuesday and say, I just need this done by the end of the week, and then let them pull it into their priority list. But I find it really, really valuable when you're multitasking and when you have your employees multitasking. If you're clear about priorities, then multitasking doesn't really come up, because as long as you're getting things done kind of in the order and the rate that you feel like they should be done, that's good. And once again, when people come to me with multitasking, they say multitasking is kind of the problem. What I usually find is a priority issue, that the person doing the work is under a different set of priorities than the person who wants the work done. So the strategy is when you hear multitasking, think priorities. That's really what happens. So I'd like to pull this back around now. So as you know, this is part of the whole Leadership Lunch program. We've got two great programs coming up next month. We're talking about holding employees accountable. So we're going to be talking about 3 particular techniques you can use to make sure that people get the work done you expect them to get done, right? You can delegate so work gets done. And then my absolute favorite program is in July, stress-free vacation. So we're going to be talking about 3 strategies you can use. So when you take your vacation in August, you can know for certain that things will get done even when you're not there. So we have a couple of really powerful strategies coming up there. So if any of you haven't joined the year-long program, I encourage you to do that at leadershiplunchwebinars.com. And for those of you who are already part of the program, I look forward to sharing those programs with you. It's really, really exciting work. So what I'd like to do now is pull what we've talked about today back into the collective engineering context. We talked about 3 programs, the 3 and 7, the 2-minute rule, and the priority list. And all of these show up. I said earlier there are only 3 reasons that work doesn't get done, and the 3 reasons are vision, motivation, and learning. And we've been talking about today are kind of in the vision motivation space. So the 3 and 7 is a motivational technique, right? To get 3 things done, and you kind of start your day with stuff getting done helps you move forward. The same is true with the 2-minute rule. There's kind of a motivational aspect to that instead of getting email and saying, oh, more email to deal with, I don't know how to deal with this, and you kind of feel that stress of work piling up. If you just start getting through them, you kind of get momentum from that, and there's really strong motivation in that. The priority list is more in the vision and learning side, that you want to communicate the vision of how things should be, how you expect things to be done and what priorities they're going to be. And it's about teaching your employees where your priorities are coming from, right? I mean, everyone has different priorities, and the key is communicating them effectively. And so teaching your employees how they can learn this. I've been in so many situations where, as a manager, I only needed one thing from someone, and they just wouldn't give it to me, right? They kind of decided to put it off. And I really encourage you, when your boss asks you for something, do everything you can to get it to him quickly, right? That's really the best way. And so the context that we're working on here is vision, motivation, and learning, and kind of how we do this in the context of collective engineering. So as we wrap up, I want to launch my final poll. Just let me know which was the most valuable strategy that you learned today. If you have any questions, well, I'll let you work on that. Hang on a second. Excellent. Thank you. If you have any questions that came up, feel free to put it through now. We're going to do the final multitasking thing, but so there any questions you have, feel free to send them in, and there will be a survey afterwards. This program is for all of you, so please let me know what you think, what you found out, and the best way of doing that is by filling out the survey at the end. So I want to talk now about actual multitasking. But there are 2 cases where you can actually multitask, and The first is in your car. There are a lot of trainers that I know, especially Zig Ziglar, talking about automobile university. And the car is really a great place to be listening to audio information. A lot of people listen to the radio. You know, nobody thinks it's really dangerous to listen to your radio. And it's the same way with books on tape or audio messages. You know, anything by Earl Nightingale, anything by James Arthur Ray, any book summaries or that sort of, business book summaries. I do a lot of this kind of work in the car. A lot of the cars today, you can actually plug your iPod straight into the stereo system, so you can listen to everything, in high definition audio. There's really no problem. And so what I really encourage people to do when they're in their car, and this works if you're working out too, people who work out, if you're listening to music, that's one thing, but why not work out to some sort of motivational message, right? There's plenty of audio out there that can keep you moving. And from a career point of view and from a success point of view, that's really a great time to spend in those sorts of pursuits, right? As you're driving around, I find sometimes that I wish my commute were longer because the program I'm listening to is interesting and I want to keep listening to it. So that's kind of a turnaround for people. That, well, you wish your commute was longer, so that is useful in the car. Or when you're working out, like it's a good way to just kind of listen to audio. So you can actually be working out and getting your exercise in and listening to audio. You're commuting, you're driving where you're going. You can be listening to audio while you're driving without really any decrease in safety. And so I really recommend that as a way of multitasking, as a way of great multitasking. Will really help your career. The second thing about multitasking, and we'll work with this a lot more in the Leadership Lunch series as we go along, is that in my window cleaning business now, I have 8 guys who are cleaning windows, and I'm doing these types of programs for other people. And when you look at multitasking, the way you can do clean multitasking, and it works in computers too. If you have multiple processors, then they can all be working actually simultaneously. And so when you look at what collective engineering offers, and when you look at delegating so work gets done, multitasking is just a small piece of that. But if you look at true, pure multitasking means that work will get done even when you're not there. And the kind of techniques we've talked about today and the kind of techniques we talk about throughout the series help towards that, help towards creating that environment. And as I like to tell people, it's a process, right? Like what we've learned today are a couple of techniques, and each month you get a few more techniques that you can really build into your repertoire. But the disservice, our schools are good at a lot of things, but the disservice that our schools are doing today is that we really put people into these silos. People feel like they can't work with each other and can't help each other out. And multitasking, that there's plenty of work that I do that's for other people, and other people do work for me. It continues moving around, and there's work that I like to do and work that other people like to do, and volunteer work and paid work and all those sorts of things. And so when you look at multitasking, the real key to multitasking is to find other people who you can train to do the work. Like that's really how you can get to the point. You have a bunch of people running around doing this stuff. And it's a very clean way. It's a very clean way of making this happen, and a very powerful way of doing more. Right? Again, 10 guys can clean a lot more windows than I'll ever be able to clean. In fact, 10 guys can clean more windows in a day than I can clean in several weeks. And so that's the way you can really ramp up the way you're being productive. Is by creating these kinds of environments, by helping people multitask. And helping people multitask and helping people learn the appropriate ways to be efficient. That can really help move this forward. So I'll give another minute. If any, this brought up any questions for anyone, please feel free to send them through. Just wait a minute, see if anyone's got any questions. Oh, great. Thank you. What does multitasking have to do with delegating? Oh, that's a great question. Thank you. So the reason, what we talk about with delegating is that it's a process, and the work that we do is to learn what the telltale signs are. Right? When work doesn't get done, what's going on. And what we've been looking at today for multitasking is that multitasking is an illusion. It's actually a smokescreen for a bunch of other issues that are going on. And we've talked about a little bit are how those issues work kind of for individuals and for teams. And so the reason this works for delegating is that as a delegator, as somebody who's a leader and getting work done through others, you're always looking for ways to make other people more efficient. And people will come to you and say, hey, I feel like I need to be a better multitasker. And so we've given some keys today, some strategies today that you can teach them, right, that will help them be more efficient. And, of course, to the extent that they're more efficient, you're going to be more efficient as a leader because you have more things going on, more work gets done even when you're not there. So awesome. Thank you for that question. That's great. Okay, thank you very much, everyone, for being on the call. We're running out of time a little bit, but I thank you. Thank you for your input. Thank you for your time. Please do fill out the survey. I do value your feedback as we continue moving this program forward, and I look forward to talking to you next month. Thanks a lot, everyone.